Do you solemnly swear that in this proceeding, the information and responses you submit will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Juan Carlos de los Santos, would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that in this proceeding, the information and responses you submit will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Lo juro.
Thank you. You may put your hand down. Mr. de los Santos, before we proceed, it is my duty to inform you of certain rights and protections that you have as a person within the United States of America. You have sworn to tell the truth, so first thing I need to ask you is, are you a U.S. citizen?
Residente.
Well, more clearly, are you a U.S. citizen?
No. No.
All right. Now, before proceeding, it is important that I note for you and explain to you certain rights and protections that you are afforded. The first right you have is the right to remain silent. That means you do not have to make any kind of statement. You don't have to answer questions. You don't have to submit written paperwork that has your signature, especially documents that admit or confess to wrongdoing. Do you understand you have that right?
Sí.
You have the right to a jury trial. That's where 6 people would be chosen by you and your attorney and the state. And those 6 from a pool of disinterested U.S. citizens who would hear all the evidence, the testimony, observe any materials that are submitted. And those 6 people would decide whether you are not guilty or whether you have been proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt. That's called the right to a jury trial. Do you understand you have that right?
Sí.
You also have the right to confront witnesses. What that means is if you decided to go to trial, the state would have to present witnesses to try and prove your guilt. Those witnesses, you and your attorney, could question, cross-examine, or challenge. That's called the right to confront witnesses. Do you understand you have that right?
Sí.
You also have the right of appeal. When this matter is finished, including sentencing, you and your attorney would have the right to demand that a higher court review the official record and the evidence in this matter for whatever legal challenge you wanted to make. You'd have to be careful because the right to appeal is a little bit technical and difficult. You have time limitations. You have technical matters that have to be provided in the documents that you would submit. But nonetheless, you have a right of appeal. Do you understand?
Sí.
You also have a right to demand that this proceeding be held in the open public courtroom. Because of the COVID pandemic, we're not doing open public courtroom hearings. But in order to proceed with your plea, you have to have reviewed and signed a document wherein you consent to the use of video conferencing instead of live open public courtroom proceedings. Do you understand you have that right?
Sí.
the state of Texas, your prosecutors also have that same right. You understand that?
Sí,
Okay. Now, in order to proceed to your plea, it was necessary for you to review, understand, and sign documents that are part of the record in this case. Do you read and write English?
no,
The documents that have your signature in this case, were they explained to you?
sí,
Were some of them in fact translated into Spanish?
sí,
All right. Now, for the record, Mr. Acevedo, are you assuring this court that the requirements of Padilla versus Kentucky have been met in reference to informing Mr. Juan Carlos de los Santos of any consequences to his immigration status or deportability?
Yes, Your Honor. I explained to Mr. Del Santo to the best of my ability as far as his immigration consequences are concerned. I did inform him that by entering a plea today that he could face possible deportation, that he possibly can be excluded from the United States if he leaves the country and attempts to come back in, and also that any application for citizenship or renewal of residency could be declined. I did inform him that if he does face deportation proceedings, that he does have a right to relief and he could contest those proceedings against him.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Judge.
Now, Mr. de los Santos. Is he getting deferred, by the way?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. de los Santos, there is a form of community supervision that we refer to as deferred adjudication. Did you review with your attorney the application for probation deferred adjudication?
sí,
Did you understand the application?
un poco,
Is there anything about it that you do not understand?
no, por lo pronto está bien.
All right. State, do you have motions?
Yes, Your Honor. The state at this time moves to amend the information to add count 2, obstruction of a highway. And then the state would move to waive count 1 and proceed on count 2.
We have no objections, Your Honor.
You have no objections. The court grants, well, before I do that, you have no objections. Do you also waive the 10-day notice of amendment?
Yes, Your Honor.
There being no objection and waiver of the 10-day notice of amendment, the court approves the motion and it is granted, and we are proceeding with obstruction of a passageway, highway, or waterway.
Highway.
Now, to the charge, Mr. de los Santos, of obstruction of a passageway, highway, or waterway, how do you plead, sir?
Culpable,
Is that what he's pleading, Mr. Acevedo?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Did anyone threaten you, intimidate you, or promise you anything other than the plea bargain in exchange for your plea of guilty?
No, no entiendo. No entiendo la pregunta.
Okay. Did anyone threaten you to try to get you to plead guilty?
No,
Did anyone try and intimidate you or push you to plead guilty?
no,
Did anyone try to promise you something or offer you money or something else so that in exchange for your pleading guilty?
no,
Okay, very good. The court accepts your plea of guilty. I find there is sufficient evidence to find you guilty, but I do not find you guilty. Instead, I'm going to grant you deferred adjudication. Now, let me briefly tell you, deferred adjudication probation means that you will be supervised by local people from the probation office. You will be required to live up to 100%, every bit of the conditions of supervision that are going to be recited here. If you live up to all the conditions, you obey them, then the case winds up being dismissed, and under Texas law, you're not convicted. If you violate the conditions by omission or by intentionally refusing to live up to them, then the state may ask me to give you notice, bring you in for a hearing. And at that time, I might, depending on the evidence, I may make a decision to convict you. And if that happens, you're looking at the full range of punishment, which is a fine anywhere from $0 to $2,000, in jail from 0 days to 180 days. Is that clear to you, sir?
sí,
All right. Now, I find there's sufficient evidence to find you guilty, but I do not. I'm granting you, state, recite for me the agreement on terms of punishment.
Yes, Your Honor. 14 months deferred adjudication, $500 fine plus court costs, 48 hours community service, DWI education program, victim impact panel live, TAP evaluation, and ignition interlock for half the term.
That is the agreement, Your Honor, as we understand it.
All right. Mr. De Los Santos, is this your understanding of the agreement on this plea?
sí,
All right. I approve that agreement as recited by the state. Now, my question is this: how do you support yourself, or who supports you?
yo trabajo.
Very good. What do you do for work, and how much do you make in a month?
Hago remodelación y como 2,000 por ahí.
A week?
2,500. No. Ah, 1,000 es como 3,000 por mes.
Do you have any children you support?
Sí,
How many do you support?
6.
They are your children.
Sí.
All right. Then the court approves the punishment as recited. You're granted 14 months deferred adjudication. You're fined $500 plus court costs. You will do 48 hours of community service restitution. You'll complete the DWI education program, the victim impact panel live. You'll submit to a TAP evaluation and recommendations. You'll have ignition interlock installed in your vehicle for 7 continuous months. During that entire 14-month period, you're not to drink any alcoholic beverages at all. You're not to use any illegal drugs. For 7 continuous months, you'll have ignition interlock on your vehicle. You're not to drive any other vehicle other than that vehicle which you have the ignition interlock in. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Sí.
All right. Your supervisory fee will be $25 a month. Do not leave this hearing until you have met with Ms. Marisela Luna. He's going to explain to you how to get into the probation program. The probation people will read to you the conditions of supervision. You will sign those conditions. They will put a copy in your hands. Is that clear?
Sí.
All right.
Judge, there's one thing we would like to address if possible.
I'm listening.
Judge, Mr. De Los Santos, the 6 children that he's referring to and his wife, they reside in Monclova, Coahuila, and he travels to Monclova twice a month. Typically, it's every other week. Every 2 weeks, he travels to Monclova. I would just ask the court if you would give him permission to travel.
The court will approve Mr. De Los Santos driving back and forth or traveling back and forth from Bexar County to his family's residence in Monclova and back. No further.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
When he returns, each time that he goes, he will submit a UA.
Understood.
I don't want him traveling and drinking.
Understood.
All right. Any questions, Mr. De Los Santos?
No, esto.
How old are you, sir?
31.
All right.
He's
Then
been busy, Judge.
you have to come by the offices of County Court of Law number 5 to have your thumbprint placed on the documents of this case as required by law. Thank you, sir. Paul, thank you for your time and your courtesy.
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate you. Judge, I'm going to go by